There's a bat colony round the corner. Want to come with me and take some photographs? Let's go. Today I find myself photographing bats. There is something incredible about bats. I've never actually photographed them before, but just around the corner from where I live is a colony of bats, and looking at them absolutely reminds you of Batman. So they're just kind of above me. Tip number one, when you turn up, don't turn up with kids who make a lot of noise, because the bats don't like that and they all fly away. Tip number two, those bats are a long way away, and so I have with me what is affectionately known as the Beast. This is my Tamron 150 to 600mm zoom lens, which means I can get up real close when it comes to these bats. So as you can see, bats are unpredictable. They hide in the trees, they move fast. The ultimate goal is to take a shot of a bat overhead with its wings looking translucent in focus. But the problem is you can't determine where they're going to fly or when they're going to fly. Plus you've got to deal with the light, which is sometimes dark and sometimes light. So what I've opted for is to shoot on 250th of a second. The maximum aperture this lens goes to is 6.3, fully extended, so 6.3, and I've got it on auto ISO, which makes it a little bit noisy at the moment. It blows it out to 2000 or so, but for the Nikon Z6 that's not actually too much of an issue. I started off shooting on the tripod, but then discovered that I need the freedom to move where they're moving, especially when they're right up there in the trees and the trees are like blowing in the wind. So you've got to be able to go with them. I've got it on continual focus, autofocus, so it's always readjusting wherever, and I'm just shooting that in the center of the screen, and I've got it on spot metering. So I just want the exposure to be determined on what I focus on, and what I'm focusing on is the bat. And what I'm hoping for is the sun is nearly setting. It's kind of shooting across at the moment. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, which should, at the moment the top of the trees are in the light, so it should get some really cool colors and effects off of the bat, capture some of their fur, some of the silkiness of their wings. They're a beautiful creature. They stink and they do excrement on you. I don't know if it's which part of excrement, but it's pretty gross. My hope is that we're about the time when they're starting to wake up and get going. So just when I'm shooting, I'm composing, I'm waiting for them to move or to flex, for the light to catch their wings or their fur. There's been a few where they're just looking straight down the barrel of the camera. They just look magnificent. A lady just walked past and she told me exactly what she thinks of these bats, and well, let's just say if the bats hurt her, it would not be pretty. I've only been here for a couple of months. Don't know where they came from or how long they're going to stay, but I think they do that. They fly into an area where there must be food available, perhaps there's a water source. They can be sustained, and then maybe when they get bored of that, or when they use it up, or it's time to mate or something else, they fly away. If there's any bat lovers out there, people that know something about bats other than me just trying to guess, I would love to hear your thoughts? What's the deal with bats? How do they work? How do they migrate and choose where to stay and when to do that? As the light goes down, your ISO goes up, because I don't want to shoot on slower than 200. I need to capture the movements with clarity rather than the images being blurred at the end of the day. Because this lens is so big, it actually, you sacrifice on aperture. So that's the challenge. In terms of composition, there's some really nice framing from trees and limbs and twigs and stuff that kind of create a bit of a natural frame for you to capture the subject. And the sun's nearly down, and I imagine when the sun goes down, they're like, woo, let's go, and they go and take over the world. I'm going to hang out here a bit more. Hopefully my stuff doesn't get nicked, but I'm going into the forest. Shoot from a different angle. Oh man, I hope they don't all attack me. Oh, like The Zoo. Have you seen that show? Good show, but truly terrifying when you think about it. So while we're here, let me talk you through a couple of the challenges of shooting with a large telephoto lens. One is that it is enormous when it's fully extended. Look at this. It just looks ridiculous, right? Look how tiny the camera body is and massive the lens is. This top thing is a lens hood. Lens hood stops the side light causing lens glare across your glass. It also protects it from the rain. If it's raining down, you don't get any rain on the lens, so that's a win. But usually I shoot with a lens hood like this. The challenge with that is it jams your fingers. You can actually get to the point where you're trying to zoom in or out and your fingers are completely jammed. The other challenge, fingers jammed, is where do you put the tripod mount? So the tripod mount scrolls around the whole thing, but and you can use it to hold the camera, but you can't access the zoom ring. So what you need to do is you loosen it off, and it swirls all the way around, and I usually put it right up top so it's not in the way of anything. So I have full control over the lens, and the lens controls here. So you've got vibration control, you've got autofocus and manual focus, you've got where your focus range goes to, and that way you can have a much more enjoyable experience rather than this banging around. Now, if you do want to put it on the tripod, you loosen this round, and it's got these little marks here. So you just loosen up the length of the marks and you tighten it up here, and what that means is when it goes on your tripod, it's going to be dead straight. How's that for a good tip? Anyway, so if you ever get one of these bad boys, I'll put a link in the description below. This cost me about $1,000, which is insanely cheap compared to what you can buy them for. It's actually what I bought a couple of years ago with my first round of calendars. So I sold some calendars, and all of the proceeds went toward this lens, which I love. It's amazing for those unique shots like bats, for example, that otherwise you can't get anywhere close to. Biggest problem with photographing these guys is you can zoom into 600 and you frame the shot, but you can't then focus when they move. So you actually have to focus at 350 or 400 mil, so you zoom it out so it's wider, and then when they start to flap their wings, or they start to move or start to shift, then you can zoom in so you get a really tight angle, because when your perspective is all cut off when you shoot it at 600, it's really, really tight, and that means you can't see anything else going on. And of course, they're flying at different heights, so getting something in focus is really tricky. But I can't close down my aperture, because if I did that, it closed down the lights and there wouldn't be enough light to get the shot. Then I'd have to bump up the ISO, which will make it all fuzzy. It's this balancing act as always, but I think we're pretty close to takeoff. They're getting a bit restless, getting a bit rowdy. I don't know if there's some like mating action happening, or it's like the little ones just getting a bit like cranky and crawling all over the other ones and upsetting them. But it's just fascinating to watch them interact with each other and just sort of nip and crawl over and claw and do all the things that basically my kids do to each other. So it feels like I'm in familiar territory. Now, another thing to note is when you're shooting into trees and layers of trees and using 600, the slightest movement shifts the focus quite dramatically. And so if there's a branch in your way, all you need to do is take a few centimeters back or forward, and it can shift the composition of that shot dramatically. Likewise, all it takes is a little bit of breeze to move a branch in front of your camera, which either triggers the autofocus to focus on it and not on the bat, or it blurs your shot. You have a blurry line, but you get amazing bokeh when you're shooting with such compression at 600, and the bats are probably 10, 15, 20 meters up in the air, so I can really zoom in real close on them. Again, but any movement or anything that comes in the way, they come up really sharp unless they're inhibited, and everything else looks really blurry, which is awesome. It's what you want, right? It brings the focus in. You can see the detail in their fur or their wings or their claws or their little noses and their little eyes. So good to keep in mind when you're shooting on this sort of focal length. Any sort of movement shifts the shot dramatically, and if you want to recompose, just move a meter this way or a meter that way, and you're in new territory. Another challenge with free holding this is this lens weighs 2 kilos and my camera weighs an extra kilo, and when you hold this thing above your head and you have to hold it still to film or to shoot, your arms start to ache. Under the impression that come dusk all the bats would fly away in slow motion. I need a space where they're all going to fly across, which is just sky, and I need them to do it really slowly, one at a time, so I can get the focus right, and then bam. I'm not liking the mass evacuation bat flight photograph opportunity chance. Well, it happened, folks. There was this mass exodus. The camera up, settings are perfect, locked and loaded. Dropped the hammer, and I caught something that looked like we've just been attacked by a bunch of dragons. Not what I was going for, but hey, better than nothing. Plenty of room for improvement. You can always improve what you're doing, so keep going hard. If you enjoyed this, drop us a subscription, give us a thumbs up, ring the bell, go find some bats, send this to someone who doesn't like bats. Could be a bit entertaining. Otherwise, see you soon. For watching, everybody. I've tried the sign off about 9 times and none of it's worked. If you haven't subscribed yet and you'd like to, then you should. And so if you subscribe, just walk through it. Cobweb. Gross. Oh, that has been fun. Give it a thumbs up. If you ring that bell, you will find that every time I put an epic video up, you'll get told. Like, if you know people that like bats, share it with them. If you know people that hate bats, that could be funny too. But they'll probably give me a thumbs down. I'm not too keen on that thumbs down. Do get it sometimes. But if you know someone that loves bats, share this video with them. If you this is cool, everyone else needs to know about this, you can share it. If you know someone that doesn't like bats, this could be fun. And I hope you have a wonderful day, just like I've had today, hanging out with some bats. So go do something a bit unusual this week.